This week's episode of our show is sponsored by Hero Forge. Hero Forge lets you design fully customizable miniatures for your role-playing game characters.
Using their web-based 3D character building platform, you can fully customize your character's appearance, choosing from hundreds of weapons, armor, and equipment, then positioning them in a dramatic pose. We love having a special, completely unique miniature, which matches our vision for our characters. Hero Forge has endless options for any class or character you can imagine.
The miniatures are finely detailed, durable, and an absolute joy to paint. You can even download the digital STL files to print them out using your own 3D printer at home, or you can custom order them in your favorite material and they're shipped right to your door.
You can start creating the perfect miniature for your next character at heroforge.com. And you can get $5 off your first premium plastic miniature with the discount code Dungeon Dudes.
And now, on to this week's episode.
Greetings, my name is Monty Martin.
And I'm Kelly McLaughlin.
And we are the Dungeon Dudes. Welcome to our channel where we cover everything Dungeons & Dragons, including advice for players and guides for Dungeon Masters.
We upload new videos on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so please subscribe to our channel so that you never miss an episode.
Today, we are ranking the subclasses available to bards in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition.
We're going to be taking a look at the various subclasses presented to the bard and their different abilities and features and how they stack up against each other. If you look on the screen now, you'll see our tiers for how we are going to rank each and every subclass, as well as the criteria that we're looking for when we examine and analyze these different subclasses. We're not taking into account roleplay potential because we believe that every subclass has an equal opportunity for great roleplaying. What we are looking at is the mechanical uses that their abilities have for combat, exploration, and social interactions in the games of Dungeons & Dragons.
Very important to note that combat efficacy is only one of many metrics that we look at when we look at the subclass. We want to look at how well the subclass augments the abilities of the base class and how often these abilities will be useful in common campaign and adventuring situations. Abilities that are useful all the time, that can be regularly used in combat, exploration, and social situations are much better and produce a much better subclass than abilities that cannot be used often or can only be used in very narrow applications.
Although multiclassing can be a great factor for some subclasses, we are not using that as a staple of our decisions when looking at the subclasses for the bard. And in the case of the bard, we actually had to be a little bit strict because the bard itself is one of the strongest classes in the game. So we needed to analyze how these subclasses actually stack up against the already powerhouse that is the bard class.
Bards are incredible characters. They have so many capabilities in combat, in both battlefield control, but also even a little bit of capability to be damage dealers and support characters and healers. They are amazing, flat out, for role-playing and social interactions, and they are also incredible problem solvers, investigators, and explorers. Almost all the subclasses on paper look really cool and offer something really, really special. But some of the bard subclasses encourage you to do things that diminish the versatility of the bard, which is the bard's greatest strength.
We're going to be comparing our views with each other as well as those of the community. There's a lot to discuss today, so let's get rolling.
Bards gain most of their subclass features at 3rd and 6th level, not gaining another ability until 14th level. So many of them are quite front-loaded, and none perhaps more so than the College of Eloquence Bard, introduced in the new Mythic Odysseys of Theros book that just came out recently.
Now, for starting with the College of Eloquence Bard, this one is one of the newer bards, and in my opinion, it really plays into the bardic inspiration, which is one of the key features of choosing a bard in the first place, as well as being able to really play into the social aspects of your bard, which again, I think is the strength of a bard player character and what they're looking to do anyway. And the College of Eloquence Bard, for me, lands in a solid S tier because of how strong and versatile it is with its abilities revolving around both social aspects and the bardic inspiration.
I agree. This is an S tier subclass. Every single ability that the College of Eloquence Bard gains, from Silver Tongue, Unfailing Inspiration, even Universal Speech, and especially their Unsettling Words ability, builds on the strengths of what makes bards amazing. Unsettling Words means that a bard with training and expertise in persuasion and deception, by about 5th or 6th level, will never get a persuasion check result under 20. It means that you never get less than 10 on the die, which means that with the bonuses of your charisma score and your proficiency bonus being doubled thanks to expertise, most bards are going to be lying through their teeth and persuading everyone left, right, and center, unfailingly so.
If you're playing a bard, there's a good chance that you're going to be the face of the party. You're the talker. You're the one engaging in almost every social interaction that happens in the campaign. And a lot of people these days are really leaning into the roleplay aspects of Dungeons & Dragons, and there's nothing better than a bard for those roleplay aspects. If you take the College of Eloquence, you are never, almost never I should say, going to fail a deception or a persuasion check because of this core ability that you gain right off the bat.
The Unsettling Words feature allows you to spend a bonus action and a bardic inspiration die to choose a creature within 60 feet of you and give them a penalty to their next saving throw equal to the roll that you get on the die. This alone basically translates to you can use this action at the start of your turn, debuff a target enemy, and then cast one of your nastiest spells against them, effectively increasing your spell saving throw DC by whatever you roll on the die. But it's not just you. If you have a wizard in the party that needs to land a crucial spell, like Banishment or Finger of Death, you don't have to be the one that gains the benefit of this. You can set up another party member, another spellcasting party member. This is one of the few abilities in the game that so flexibly debuffs an enemy's saving throw with nothing they can really do to prevent it. At 6th level, they gain Unfailing Inspiration, which means that when they give out their Bardic Inspiration die, and that die is used, but it doesn't turn the attack roll, ability check, or saving throw that the party member was making into a success, the roll still fails, that inspiration die isn't expended and can be then reused until it is successfully applied. This means that your Bardic Inspiration is never wasted when you use it, which is absolutely incredible to augment a core ability, and it takes away one of the weaknesses of Bardic Inspiration, which means that you could use it and still fail. Well, now it's never wasted.
At 14th level, it gets even better because now, if you use an inspiration die and it succeeds, that inspiration die can then be passed to somebody else, meaning that your inspiration and the uses of it go far past just handing it to one player at the table and hoping that it is able to help them. You now have ways to use the Bardic Inspiration if it fails, if it succeeds, or a multitude of other options here that just amplifies everything that you want your bard to do. It's so good. It's so powerful. And I think that these abilities work so well together.
The College of Eloquence Bard takes everything that rocks about the bard and just turns the volume up to 11. More like 12, actually. So the community poll that we left gives 34.9% a B, 27.6% an A, and 25.4% an S. I think that well over 60% of our community did not read the abilities of this subclass and maybe didn't get the book yet.
I think that a lot of people maybe haven't seen this in play yet and maybe haven't experienced how powerful of an option a lot of these abilities are.
I went into our feedback responses for this, and a lot of comments that we saw from people said that they actually didn't know how to rank the Eloquence Bard because they hadn't seen it in their games yet. And anyone that had comments about the Eloquence Bard pretty universally sang its praises. So I think that that's why we have the disparity here in this result.
I think at the end of the day, we're putting Eloquence Bard at a solid S tier ranking.
Next up, we have the College of Glamour, introduced in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. This bardic subclass has two primary abilities that it gains right out the gate. It gains its Mantle of Inspiration power, which allows you to use your bardic inspiration to, as a bonus action, give a number of party members temporary hit points, and also allow them to spend their actions to move up to their speed without provoking opportunity attacks, which is a pretty useful and interesting mutation of the Bardic Inspiration ability that means that your bard doesn't have to take, say, a feat like Inspiring Leader. You also gain 2 interesting abilities, Mantle of Majesty and Enthralling Performance. I think that these are pretty good abilities, actually. The problem with them is I don't think that they're going to come up a lot in many campaigns. I think particularly the Enthralling Performance ability requires you to perform for 1 minute, sing a song, and engineer a social situation. And I think that you could go many, many game sessions without ever using this ability. Furthermore, the Mantle of Majesty ability uses your bard's concentration to maintain. And bards have a lot of really good concentration spells, so it competes with every single spell that bards have. For this reason, I think the benefits of this subclass are very situational, and in many cases they can be superseded by spells and other abilities that bards already get or have available to them. For this, I give this subclass a B.
I'm actually in agreement here. I love this subclass, but it is for me a B tier subclass. I agree with you that those abilities, when you read them, they sound really, really cool. And as a dungeon master, if I had a College of Glamour bard playing at my table, I would engineer situations where they could use these abilities. But the fact that that is the necessity is that you need to have situations that would come up that would allow you to amplify the powers of this bard and use these abilities in cool and fun ways means that it's something that won't happen regularly and won't even happen in every campaign setting. And if it does, it might only be a handful of times. And that means that in the right campaign setting, this could be a really, really cool choice for a bard. But in some campaign settings, it's going to be a disappointment. I do think that there is something interesting to state that you could have a really interesting villain that is a glamour bard. I'm thinking David Bowie as the Goblin King in Labyrinth. But having those abilities used as a villain or something that you as the DM get to orchestrate the circumstances in which those abilities are cool and useful, and the party gets involved in them. But being a player character, it's pretty niche to have some of these options come up. Let's see what our community ranking thinks of the College of Glamour bard.
11% of our community gave it an S rank, 36% gave it an A, and 40% of it gave it a B, with the remaining 10% giving it a C. Not a bad breakdown. I think it's a pretty even split between A and B, and I think I'm in agreement with the idea that in the right campaign, this is good. It's solid, but I think that I gotta hold pat on the B. I think that I could engineer that situation that the Glamour Bard can do with another bard and pull off more strong things in other situations.
Absolutely. This is a B tier, and most of the community agrees with us, although I can definitely see the reasoning for a high percentage of people wanting it to be A, and you could argue those points very easily.
Next up, we come to the College of Lore Bard, found in the Player's Handbook. A classic choice, and I think a very popular favorite. Many people forget that the College of Lore Bard gains 3 extra skill proficiencies, and eventually can use their Bardic Inspiration to boost their own skill checks with Peerless Skill. Because I think the thing that most people are here for as the College of Lore Bard are the Cutting Words ability, which allows you to use your reaction to spend Bardic Inspiration to debuff enemy attack rolls. And let's face it, the 6th level feature, Additional Magical Secrets, gaining 2 bonus spells from any class list is just fantastic. It is exceptionally difficult to fully quantify just how much getting to pick any 2 spells from any class in the game at 6th level can transform your bard. Every bard gets magical secrets and can do this, but the lore bard gets to do it earlier at a very sweet spot when 3rd level spells just are becoming available. For this reason, I think that as long as you are choosing really great options with your magical secrets, the lore bard is S tier.
I have to agree with you. It is by far, in my opinion, one of the most powerful bard options. Having the magical secrets chosen twice, once which allows you to look at the 3rd level spells, which really alleviates the pressure of the 10th level magical secrets, where you say, okay, there's a lot of great spells of level 3, 4, 5. what do I do? Now, instead of having to compare all of those spells together and make your choice, you get to focus in at 6th level on the 3rd level spells, and then at 10th level, you can choose those higher end spells and really change the way your bard's going to work. This combined with something that shouldn't be taken for granted, which is 3 additional skill proficiencies, which can really amplify what your bard is already good at. Your bard is a skill junkie. All bards are skill junkies. They gain benefits to skills that they're not proficient in, and they get a lot of proficiencies. This doubles down on that. And then cutting words is just excellent. And this bard really is going to be just an amplified version of everything that the core class already offers you. So S tier is absolutely what I give the lore bard, and I think it's without a doubt. It and the Eloquence bard both double down on what the bard already is without taking anything away. You don't have to make any difficult choices on whether you're going to lose something to gain something else. These 2 subclasses are nothing but gains.
You can choose the right spells to suit the campaign. So no matter what type of campaign you're playing in, no matter what party makeup you're in, if you're like, our party actually needs some additional healing, our party doesn't have anybody that knows Fireball, our party doesn't have a counterspell, you can pilfer exactly the right spell that you need to suit this. This flexibility is absolutely incredible, and it comes online so much earlier.
So let's take a look at what the community has to say about the lore bard.
This is a landslide. 66.9% gave it an S tier. The remaining 25% gave it an A. I think that the A is totally possible if you don't make good choices for your magical secrets. The community poll is staunchly in agreement with us. This is an S tier subclass, with the remaining 25% giving it A and 66.9% ranking it the S tier. I think we can solidly say the College of Lore Bard is an S tier subclass.
So next up we have the College of Swords Bard, which was introduced in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. And this is a way to make your bard more of a melee combatant. It gains proficiency with medium armor and scimitars. And only scimitars. Which isn't quite as good as maybe a few other options that are out there. And when I look at the abilities, there's some really cool and unique ways to use a College of Swords bard. And you get choices for how you can use your bardic inspiration in unique and interesting ways. But a lot of these ways are selfish. They only impact you as the bard player, which, in my opinion, actually takes away from what the greatness of the bard is. They are the essence of what it means to be the support player, dishing out their bardic inspiration to help the entire party. When you make that more of a selfish and internal thing to help amplify your attacks, it's really cool, and if you wanted to play a melee-oriented bard, this is an option that you can take, but for me, this actually lands solidly in the D tier. As I read through this bard subclass, compared to all of the other options presented, this one seemed the least impactful to me. It seemed like it actually took away from all of the love that I have for the bard and tried to make it something that I felt wasn't what the bard is.
So the College of Swords Bard gains some meager additional weapon proficiencies and armor proficiencies. It doesn't get shields, and it doesn't get interesting two-handed martial weapons. It gains an option of 2 different fighting styles, both gravitating it towards one-handed weapons or dual wielding. So it's either the dueling fighting style or 2-weapon fighting. It gets extra attack, and then it gets these blade flourishes. The blade flourishes on paper somewhat resemble Battlemaster maneuvers, but rather than being powered by a separate set of dice, they're powered by your bardic inspiration. So if you're using Blade Flourish, you're not giving out bardic inspiration. Or if you are using both together, you are burning through your bardic inspiration die at a breakneck pace. Now, you do get these back on a short rest, but if you're constantly handing these things out, you are going to go through them really, really quickly in a combat encounter. And then in battle, if you are going ahead, charging forward, stabbing things with your rapier for a little bit of damage, not anything impressive at all, you are now not casting spells with your action, which is fine if you're going to cast a concentration-based spell and then come in and conserve spell slots by stabbing things. But I still think that a bard casting one spell and then using Vicious Mockery is going to have way more of an impact on a battle than you will poking things with a rapier for a couple d8s of points of damage as a College of Swords bard. I think that leaning into the playstyle offered by the subclass makes you a worse bard. And that's why I give it a D. There are some cases where a bard wants to be competent as a melee combatant, where they need to step in and fill the role. But the College of Swords bard leans in just too heavily and doesn't give us anything else to support anything else the bards are good at.
Now, I understand that a lot of people out there actually love the College of Swords. And I think, again, we go back to the fact that the bard itself is such a strong root class that if you tack on the College of Swords, you're still going to have an amazing player character. You're not going to be like, oh, I messed up and picked a bad subclass. No, you're going to still have a great time playing this bard at the table. The fact is, if we stack it against all the other subclasses, this one takes away the most from what we want the bard to do. Can we do better with the other subclasses? And in both of our opinions, the answer is yes.
Going into our community poll, 36% of respondents gave this an A or a B, with 10% giving it S and 14% giving it a C. I got to disagree completely with the community results on this. Only 2% of respondents gave this a D. And I think it's exactly as you said, Kelly. I think that people are not seeing the forest for the trees with this subclass.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that at the end of the day, this mixed bag of results is because the bard in itself is so great that adding the swords bard to it is like, oh yeah, I've played a swords bard and it was still great. And yeah, it probably was, but it wasn't as great as the other options.
Yeah, it just...
Sorry, folks, but at the end of the day, we are giving this a D ranking, and I apologize to everybody who's upset about that, but it's the way it's got to be.
Yeah, this is the worst bard subclass, I think. So, when I was reading the comments, there was one comment that said, the Swords Bard is everything that the Valour Bard wanted to be. And I feel the opposite. The College of Valour Bard, introduced in the Player's Handbook, introduced the template for the martially oriented bard. The College of Valour Bard, like the College of Swords, gains proficiency in weapons and armor, but with the case of the College of Valour Bard, you're getting medium armor, shields, and all martial weapons. Meaning, instead of needing to run up into the front lines, you can pick up a bow, and you can lean into the archer archetype with the College of Valour. College of Valour also gains combat inspiration, allowing your allies to use your bardic inspiration to boost their AC, further augmenting your bardic inspiration, letting you use it in more ways. And at 14th level, the College of Valour Bard gains the Battle Magic class feature, which when they cast a bard spell with their action on their turn, they can make a weapon attack as a bonus action, which again, doesn't have to be a melee attack. This can be a ranged attack. So I love the College of Valour Bard. I think it's actually great, and I think it fills an important niche. It's not as strong as the Eloquence or the Lore Bard, I think, but I think I'm confident enough to give the Valour Bard an A, because I think having a somewhat tankier bard wearing more armor or using a bow to make ranged attacks is a solid approach to playing the bard. In a lot of circumstances, this makes your bard into a pretty viable combat ally. Misplayed, I think that this falls much further, quite quicker, but I'm reasonably confident in giving this an A. I think it augments enough of the class.
I gave the College of Valour Bard a B ranking. I think it plays into the melee combatant bard or the combat-oriented bard better than the College of Swords. And I do think that this does depend on the campaign and the party dynamic. If you're a College of Valour Bard and you're in a party with a fighter and a paladin, you're going to look like an idiot trying to stand up next to them and be like, I'm a fighter too. And they're going to be like, no, you're not, man. And then because you're leaning into this, you can look at the spellcasters and be like, I'm a spellcaster too. And they're going to be like, no, you're not, man. And so you end up falling in this weird middle ground that the bard can excel at being in the middle ground, But in this, I think that push towards specialization requires the right mix of the right atmosphere, the right party dynamic in order for the College of Valour Bard to really shine. So yes, in the right campaign, I think the College of Valour shines really, really well. But in a lot of cases, there's a chance that the player could feel disappointed that they're not having the output in combat or spellcasting that other characters in the group are, and therefore they just feel diminished by that.
Again, this is another subclass that, unlike the Eloquence and the Lore Bard, it doesn't bring us anything that we get outside of combat. It is just a combat specialization. And I do agree with you, like, over-specializing with your Bard is really dangerous. Like, if you can do this with the Bard and the spellcasting, too. Like, if you take all the charm and mind control spells with your Bard, you've really narrowed your pool and over-specialized your character. And this is the danger with the combat-oriented Bard. So I think I could be convinced in dropping this down to a B.
This is the interesting thing about the Valour Bard is I could probably convince you it's a B, and you could probably convince me it's an A. So it really falls really close to the middle of those two for me. I also think, like, if we're going on this idea of specializing your Bard, that is the thing, is that a specialized Bard is never as good at what it's specializing in as another class that the game has to offer.
Yeah.
The Bard's strength comes from its versatility, and to remain versatile is the best choice you can make for a Bard.
I could even be convinced to rank the College of Valour lower than what I did, so maybe B is the safe bet. Let's see what the community says. 36% gave it an A, 39% gave it a B, 15% gave it a C.
It's really close between A and B and a little bit of C. So again, if you make some good choices, maybe it's an A. Although maybe the A vote is for the people who are playing it in a great campaign where they get to excel at being a frontline fighter. In a lot of campaigns, you might land in that B section, and if you make some bad choices with your spells, you might end up landing in the C. I think that a solid B is the right choice for the Valour Bard.
Finally, we come to the College of Whispers Bard, found in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. This subclass grants you some key abilities, the first of which is the Psychic Blades power. When you hit a creature with a melee weapon attack, you can expend one of your Bardic Inspiration die to deal an extra 2d6 points of psychic damage to that creature. As you gain levels, you gain a few additional d6s that you can add to this psychic damage. You also gain two really unique powers, Words of Terror and Mantle of Whispers. Words of Terror allows you to spend a minute talking to a creature to frighten it, and Mantle of Terror allows you to create a shadow of a recently slain creature that you can adopt to basically assume its identity, Arya Stark style. You actually even get to know a little bit about what it knows when you do this. I think that these abilities are super cool and super evocative, and also will happen like once, even in a campaign that is built for them. The Mantle of Whispers ability is so restrictive. On paper, it sounds like, wow, this is amazing. But you have to be there when the target you want to transform into dies. And so I'm a little bit at a loss to what does this ability do that you couldn't necessarily accomplish by casting Disguise Self and Detect Thoughts. I think that ultimately everything that this subclass grants you can be granted by the other subclasses. And even as unique as these are, you can emulate them all with spells. And if you tried to engineer the circumstances where the subclass is amazing, they're so rare and so specific that they're only going to happen in a heist one-shot that is built for your character to excel. This is a D.
I gave the College of Whispers a C. I love the College of Whispers in its flavor. Unfortunately, we're not ranking the flavor of it. We're ranking its mechanical output. I still give it a C because if you're playing an infiltration-heavy campaign, this bard could grab a town guard, drag him into some bushes, slit his throat, become the guard, and walk straight into the castle. I still wouldn't give it a B because even in the right campaign, it's still relatively niche on its output and relatively hard to use and could be replaced with spells.
But it's not just a spell. It's you could do almost everything the subclass does with Disguise Self and really good skill checks. Like a College of Eloquence bard is never going to roll under 20 on their deception check. So they disguise self and start lying.
I'm not saying this is... That's why it's C, and I'm not giving it even close to the College of Eloquence. I still wouldn't pick the College of Whispers unless I definitely wanted to play College of Whispers, which part of me kind of does at some point. I still don't think it's the worst subclass out there, and I still think it has some really fun options for somebody who's really attached to this idea and could really enjoy it.
The fact that you have to kill the target to use this ability is actually to its detriment, because if you're killing the target, that implies some sort of situation where potentially you could either do it stealthily or you could capture them. Another bard could capture the target, interrogate them using their various charisma-related abilities or spells like suggestion and detect thoughts, keep them captive, and then go back in with themselves with disguise self, something else to prove it, and maybe even pick up modify memory as a magical secrets to wipe the target's brain that it ever happened.
That's all well and good, but let's say that you are in the middle of a mission and you need to infiltrate the castle and you don't have time for any of that. Guess who can do that quicker? The College of Whispers bard. At the end of the day, we're very close to the same argument here. I think I just really like the College of Whispers bard, and I personally think that the College of Swords bard is worse than the College of Whispers bard.
But I mean, no, I think they're equally bad.
Let's see what the community has to say about the College of Whispers to see whether they agree with Monty or myself or neither of us.
With the College of Whispers bard, 26.2% gave it an A, and 6.4% of people gave it an S tier. 45.3% gave it B, 18.4% gave it C, and 3.7% gave it D. Have you seen the bard spell list? Like, have you really looked at the bard spell list? Bards can do everything the subclass can do already.
Even as somebody who is trying really hard to defend how much I really enjoy the College of Whispers bard, I still don't think it's A or B tier. I still think that you can do a lot of what this subclass has to offer with the right spell selection. Where do we land as a final assessment for this subclass? I think if we are going by our ranking scheme, which is which one of us has the higher percentage vote if we disagree, it's going to land as a C tier.
I will stubbornly concede and give it the C, but I'm not happy about having to do that.
I know he's not. So in conclusion, when we're looking at the bard, the general idea here is that no matter what subclass you choose, you're going to have a great time. If you set out to play a bard, the bard class in itself is so strong that no matter what subclass you choose, you're going to be benefiting the party and you're going to have so much fun in your campaign setting. But the question that you have to ask yourself is, if you look at all of the subclass options, can you get away with doing what these subclasses offer by a good spell selection and then still gain the benefits that something like the Eloquence bard or the Lore bard give to you that just amplify what the bard already does? And then with a few good spell choices, and if you're playing with feats, maybe pick a few of those up, and suddenly you're cooking with gas with your bard who can play every instrument in the book and write beautiful ballads for the world to enjoy. Or are you going to be stuck in the garage band trying to make it big with your terrible, terrible music that you're whipping out with your friends?
In 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, the bard simply rocks. It is one of my favorite classes next to the wizard. I think that its flexibility and versatility are incredible strengths. And I think that if you are someone who loves role-playing, problem-solving, battlefield control, being a team player, the bard has everything that you need to succeed. It's just that the Lore bard and the Eloquence bard take all those things that you love about the class and turn the volume up. They amplify it. Whereas the other bard subclasses give you some interesting abilities and interesting specializations, but they're much more narrow in their focus, and they're going to give you abilities that you might spend entire game sessions and even entire wings of campaigns, and you will never use the features of those subclasses. And to me, that is the detriment. Is I look at a subclass and I go, can I see using these abilities time and time and time again? in every game session? Do I feel like I'm using these powers in every game session? The Whispers Bard, you might not. The Swords Bard, you will get to feel like you're using those abilities, but it's actually going to take away from you. The Lore Bard and the Eloquence Bard, though, that's some good music.
So this has been a look at our rankings of the Bard subclasses in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Tell us about how you think these subclasses stack up in the comments below.
The videos that we create on our channel are made possible thanks to the amazing generosity of our Patreon supporters, and we thank each and every one of you from the bottoms of our hearts. If you enjoy the content that we create here on YouTube, please consider checking us out on Patreon by following the links in the description below.
Don't forget to check out our live play in the Worlds of Drakkenheim, which airs Tuesday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/dungeon_dudes. You can find all the previous episodes of that campaign right up over here.
And we have plenty more rankings and guides for the classes of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition right up over here.
Please subscribe to our channel so that you never miss an episode.
Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time
In the dungeon.